Okay, so as I mentioned, we do have annual sponsors, and I'd be remiss in not thanking them all. They help to offset some of our costs and make some events to our members free of cost. So our member annual sponsors are Southland Industries. I know Christy just recently joined the event, so she is here. We also have Surf Pro of Easton and Andre Hewitt Associates as well as annual sponsors. So as I mentioned, this will be recorded. What you can do, attendees, you can put questions in the chat. I will interject to the panelists your questions as it pertains to the subject matter as we go through today's presentation. And we will have a question and answer period at the conclusion of all of their presentation as well. I ask that you stay muted during the presentation, and we'll open that up at the end, unmute all of you for the Q&A session at the conclusion. So let me, without any further delay, thank all of our panelists and also introduce them. First, we have Fran Kedish. Fran is the Senior Director of Technical Service, the Vascular Division of Teleflex. We have Rick Wallagora. Rick is the Capital Projects Manager at Muhlenberg College. We have Joe Landergan, President of Sage Design Build, Inc. And Rich Free. Rich is the Executive Director for Green Build United. So gentlemen, just as a courtesy to you and to let everybody know how we mix the panel here today, if you could just tell us a little bit about your companies, and we'll start with Joe.
Sure. Hi, I'm Joe Landrigan. I'm the president of Sage Design Build. We are a commercial construction management company specializing in design build. I'm also an architect, lead AP, and a certified passive house builder.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe. Rich Free, we'll move to you next.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm actually going to share my screen and just do a couple of slides very briefly if folks will indulge me. But good morning. My name's Rich Free. I'm the Executive Director, as you heard, of Green Building United. We are a regional nonprofit. We are based in the city of Philadelphia, but we work across Southeast Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley, and the state of Delaware. Here's some slides. Can you all see these okay?
Yes.
I'll put them into presentation mode. See if that works even better. As I said, we're a nonprofit. This is our mission. We're trying to advance an equitable transition to a climate-friendly and healthy built environment. And we do that through education, advocacy, and strategic initiatives. I mentioned where we work. So certainly, hopefully folks see themselves there in Lehigh, Northampton counties, but if you're in other parts of the region, love to talk to you as well. And as I mentioned, what we do at Green Building United is a nonprofit, really three big things. So we do education and events for our membership. They're big and small. We'll talk about them throughout our time here. We do policy and advocacy, so working with legislators and decision makers, policy makers at the state level, regional level, local level across our region. And we do direct programs as well, which we call our strategic initiatives. And the ability to do all of this is really predicated on our membership. So Green Building United is a membership organization. We have folks who are architects, building designers, engineers, building operators, developers, activists, and advocates from across the region who are members of Green Building United. I'll talk more about this throughout the day here in terms of the education and events that we do. We've got our annual awards coming up in October. Really looking forward to that. We always have some great nominations from Lehigh Valley. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a Lehigh Valley specific community, which is one of the ways that our members organize. I saw Marie and I think Steve have already joined from our community this morning. I'll share more about that throughout the day. We similarly have sustaining partners as well as members, as I mentioned. So I'll include links and share these slides with everybody, but really excited for the conversation today. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thanks, Rich. All right, we'll move on to Fran. Fran?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this time to be able to discuss sustainability. As my role at Teleflex is that of a senior director for technical services, mainly within the R&D portion of our manufacturing arm. So we are a manufacturer of medical products. We do have a number of sites that are actually worldwide. So we cover the United States, we cover Mexico, and Malaysia, as well as Southeast Asia, and the Czech Republic. So in that, we have a number of sites, and as we get into the sustainability part, we're going to be talking about not only the sustainability efforts that we have locally, but also what we are doing worldwide. Within IFMA, I'm also a CFM, something I'm very proud of, and took a lot of work to accomplish. And I also have the privilege of working with other individuals within Teleflex, one of which is on this call, Kelly Templin, who's also a member here at IFMA. So thank you very much for everyone's time.
Thank you, Fran. Thanks for the plug for IFMA. And Fran is one of only 9 of our 100 members that are certified as a CFM. So congratulations on his accomplishment. And final, but not to be diminished, Rick, if you want to share a little bit about
last and least, is that what you're trying to say, Mike?
your
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us. My name is Rick Wallagor. I'm the Capital Projects Manager at Muhlenberg College in Allentown. I've been there for about 6.5 years. I've been doing sustainability for as long as I can remember, as long as sustainability has been a thing. One of the colleges I worked at before actually coined the phrase. They were the environmental college and whatnot. So it's been a while since I've been doing this. We have a lot of things going on campus currently, and we've completed some projects which we'll talk about more later as we get into this. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That helps all of you as attendees to understand the diverse group of panelists we have here this morning, so that hopefully it reflects for you and resonates with your facilities. I do want to say that at the conclusion of this event, we will make the contact information for each of these panelists available to you so that you can follow up with some mentorship or some follow-up questions to their presentation this morning. So, Fran, I'm going to start with you with the first question. What are some of the key sustainability initiatives currently implemented in your facility or with your or Teleflex?
That's a great question, and I'm going to just share one slide here real quick to help actually bring this example here. Give me a second here. I want to find where this share screen. Very good. And let's see right there. Let me know when you can see my screen.
You're up. All good.
So, there's 4 main pillars to sustainability that Teleflex works towards. One of them being social, which is our contribution to the communities in which we work in and we have our facilities in. The human element of that, and that is mainly focused on our individual employees and what we have to do to be able to maintain an excellent working relationship with our teams. Economic is fairly obvious. This is from a sustainability effort. We try to always, realize some type of savings in the efforts that we put forward, and we usually measure ourselves not only in the accomplishments of from a sustainability perspective, but also how much financial impact we are having on the organization. This is usually measured in a unit called return on investment, and that's pretty common throughout the industry. Finally, environmental. Obviously, the use of materials that we have for processing, the fossil fuels that we are consuming, and what we're doing to positively impact the environment is something that we as an organization are driving towards, and something that is obviously the key pillar in all of these four. I'm going to stop sharing now as soon as I find the appropriate button. Stop sharing. There we go. Okay.
All right. Rick, I'll ask you the same question. Obviously, you maintain a pretty robust campus there. What sustainability efforts and initiatives do you currently have in place at Muhlenberg College?
Uh, fun things are always going on a college campus, as you can imagine. Most recently, in January 23, we opened our newest building, which is the Fahey Commons for Public Engagement and Innovation. It's certified as LEED Platinum, passive house design, as well as it's the first building in the world to achieve what's called Living Building Challenge Core status. It's a quite a challenging feat. We were hustling and bustling trying to be the first in the world for that, because in order to achieve that, um, like LEED and like Passive House, you have to go through a robust process of to try to get to certification. Unlike LEED and Passive House, you actually have to have your building operate for a full year and manage metrics and report those metrics back to ILFI. Uh, so it's pretty robust, pretty challenging, but we're able to make it through that. We were the first in the world to be certified that. And much like Fran was talking about, a lot of things with the Living Building Challenge Core, it falls into 7 different divisions: place, water, energy, health and happiness, materials, equity, and beauty. And what we really focused on as we're bringing together the stakeholders to build the design for this building was getting all their input. And it wasn't just from students, faculty, and staff. We had board members. We actually had members of the community, some alumni and things, all have their input into it. And at the end of it, the leading goal was to make it a really healthy and happy place, as happy as a workplace can be for people to come to. And our faculty and staff and students seem to congregate around the building and in the building. They really enjoy being there. So it's worked out really well for us.
Great, wonderful. Rick, I do have a question for you already. John Lyon from Volvo Mac is asking, there's always a cost pressure on new buildings. How did you quantify the impact on cost to meet and go for the certifications?
So that's a great question, because it's a very challenging question, especially in our budget challenge times that we're in right now. And I've neglected to tell you that we did this all at our first design charrette was 2 days after COVID started. So it was a challenging time to do that. But as far as budgets and the challenges that come with that, one of the things that we did from the get-go was we established what we were trying to achieve. We really looked at how sustainable we wanted to be. Everybody likes to be as sustainable as possible, I think, at this point in time. We've got a lot of input. We went to the board multiple times, had multiple discussions with them. But as our design team would tell you, what they did was they baked in a lot of things to make the sustainability work as part of the core part of the building, if you will. Once we started that, once we developed our budgets, we brought them to the board. We got, obviously there's a lot of give and take on it, but we were able to push through. The board asked us to recommend a certification. At that point, we recommended to the board the Living Building Challenge Core certification. Again, with a lot of give and take and discussion. Long story short, they came back and said, here's what we're going to do for you. We'll give you Living Building Challenge Core certification. We'll fund that portion. What we want to do is have you also go for LEED Platinum. because students, 3 or 5 years ago, lead was what everybody knows. Even high school students, a lot of them understand lead and the lead process. Not very many people understand the living building challenge process. So they were willing to give us platinum as long as we and allowed us to do a living building challenge core. Our president was 100% behind us. She pushed me as hard as I pushed our design team, and our board was 100% behind that. Once we went through, we looked at the ROIs of a variety of different things, from lead to passive house, living building challenge core, well building, the whole litany of them. We presented all that multiple times to the board, and that's when we came back to settle on the living building challenge core as well as lead platinum. Passive house just kind of integrated into everything else as we went through the process. It just kind of fell off oh, here we are, we could go passive house as well. So we did.
Great. There was a follow-up question from Mike Ludi, but it appears you've already answered that one, so I won't bother you. Rick has teed you up so perfectly, almost like we rehearsed this. So what are some of the efforts and initiatives that GBU looks towards to the build community?
Yeah, you really did. And it does seem like we prepped for this a little bit. So a little background about me. I worked in local government for almost a decade. I worked nationally for a couple of years. And the thing that attracted me back to working locally and regionally and joining Green Building United about 3 years ago was exactly the answer to this question. Because, right now in the world, at the national level, things don't look so hot. It's pretty bleak in the sustainability and climate space. And really, where I draw energy and inspiration are the local projects and the work that's happening. And I think Rick just described to me like one of the really most impactful and amazing projects I think that we have seen in our region and in the last couple of years. I briefly mentioned our Groundbreaker Awards coming up, and the Fahey Commons project was a winner of our last Groundbreaker Awards in 2023. So full disclosure there. But I think when we sort of think about
Oh,
this
that's like a
question,
lot.
I think when we think about this question of you know, what the initiatives are and the opportunities, it really does start at the project level, and it starts, from the questions we're already getting, sort of defining like what are the goals and what does sustainability mean in each project and for each initiative. So as an example, one of the initiatives that we run in Southeast PA, primarily in Philadelphia and also in Camden County, is a partnership with the William Penn Foundation called the Climate Ready Capital Projects Initiative, where we're working with nonprofits who are sort of at the early stages of a capital project and helping them sort of to figure out what their goals are and how sustainability and resilience can fit into them. So not kind of presuming like we're going to come in and put solar panels on something, or we're going to come in and put a green roof on something, but really starting from like, what are you trying to achieve with this project? Who are you serving? What is your mission? And then sort of layering onto that, well, okay, like sustainability, as we all know, can mean a lot of different things, and really helping them to sort of see how sustainability and climate can help them ultimately achieve that mission. So I think, as we're really looking ahead, it's going to remain at that project level. It's going to remain sort of helping folks define sustainability for themselves. And then ultimately, it's going to be for Green Building United, really lifting up and celebrating those best practices. And I think that's what we do best with our events and through our membership. So I mentioned our Groundbreaker Awards. We have a sustainability symposium every spring. And then we always have great events in the Lehigh Valley. So I think we're planning a couple that aren't on the calendar quite yet, but look out for those coming this fall. We're really looking for opportunities to celebrate, again, all the great work that folks here are doing. I think that, I draw inspiration from that, and hopefully other folks do as well.
Good. Thank you, Rich.
Hey, Michael.
Yes, Rick.
One of the things that Rich led into, and I neglected to state, is I think that what we found in all the years that I've been doing this is if you start planning for your sustainable efforts in your new construction or in your project from the beginning, it's a lot more cost effective than it is to try to add it on, in the middle somebody goes, oh, we should go for lead or we should do this, then it becomes a lot more expensive as you try to redesign and recreate things to make sure that you can meet all the goals and parameters set forth by whatever certification process you're looking for.
No, that's a great point, Rick. And that brings me to Joe. Joe, your role's a little different. You're consulting with clients on their buildings or additions to facilities. What initiatives do you take on the design build side, to Rick's point, of having these conversations with clients?
Yeah, that's a good lead in, because I would say at the beginning of every project, we start off the conversations with all of our clients to sort of separate needs versus wants, and whether it's about the project in general or sustainability, but sustainability is just one of the topics that are covered when we go through that initial planning exercise. And I would say with us, we do not only new construction, but also renovation, retrofits, adaptive reuse. And many times the clients that we're dealing with are smaller businesses, maybe not as educated as a larger corporation might be. And so for us, it's really important that we keep things in simple terms. And I would say most of the time, there's some really easy ways of having conversations with people when you lead them down the path of energy savings, which turns into cost savings. Our clients really respond well to that. So our focus stays at that, what I would say, initial phase. And then in that initial phase, it becomes sort of a seamless part of the overall project. So again, to Rick's point, so long as it's incorporated in the beginning, it's significantly easier to just incorporate into the overall project rather than an add-on after the fact. So we just make it part of our process and just talk about it in very simple terms.
Good, thank you. Moving to the next question, and Rick, I'll start with you. You talked about the initiatives there at Muhlenberg College. How does the college measure the success of your sustainability practices or goals?
That's always a tough one, Michael, as you know. But as we dive deeper into sustainability, the college has over the past handful of years added both a minor and a major degree element in sustainability. So as we look at those, we try to walk the talk. As we dive deeper into the depths of sustainability, we have to look past just the cost savings. We're looking at a more holistic return on investment that centers around the end user's health, happiness, and well-being, like we talked about. So there's a lot of different things to measure success, a lot of different ways. ROI is one that virtually 99.9% of us fall back to, because that's the one that whoever we report to is looking for, whether it be in Joe's case, as he said, residential or commercial type companies, or in Fran's case, a larger corporation, or in my case, just the college and the board of trustees and whatnot. They're looking for the ROI. Everybody wants it. That helps with the investment, of course. But then when you start talking about how great it is to walk into a building that's got 100% fresh air coming in all the time, how great it feels to be in that building and things like that. And you start seeing that when you go to a building that has that, it makes a big difference. And that's what our board and our senior leadership was looking for as we designed our building. So.
Good, thank you. Fran, I'll ask you the same question, because Rick said, ROI, obviously an international corporation like Teleflex probably has metrics that you have to achieve.
Yeah. So ROI is definitely the item that we hang our hat on, and we use that as part of our initial approval process to be able to secure the funding for these type of items. We have a process which is the initials are PEA, or Purchasing Expense Authorization. And in that, the core of that happens to be the ROI, and that depends on literally just about any type of project that we're working on, so that we can put some type of financial measures to it and say, yes, okay, if we indeed invest in this particular item, we can expect a return on investment of X number of months or years. With sustainability projects, we try to stay and keep those in the 7 to 10 year range. If it goes beyond that, it's sometimes very tough to get through the approval process. If it's in that lower range, if you get it down to 5 years, it's definitely a shoo, and it usually goes through without a problem. I'm going to be talking a little bit later on about a project that we recently completed at our Wyomissing, PA site, and we didn't formally calculate the ROI, but my guess is it's about 1.5 years. So it was a real easy one to get approved, and will definitely give us a nice return.
Great. Joe, you mentioned the same, that your clientele look for that ROI immediately. It's an easier way to for you to sell them on sustainability. What are some of the measures that you hear your clients wanting to see for sustainable practices?
Sure. And I would just qualify this that, the majority of work we're doing is private sector commercial, many times developer-based projects. So there's certainly a lot of pressure around that ROI to be on that lower end. I would say, 5 years is sort of a sweet spot. Anything less than 5 years is usually a no-brainer for them to move forward on. When it stretches beyond there, it really depends. And I would say that, the other complexity that makes it interesting is when you talk about governmental inputs. So for things like grant money, right, there are certain things out there for grants and tax credits that would offset some of that spending. That for some of our clients that are a little bit more sophisticated in understanding that, and some of that we try to educate them on for things that we know or programs that we know. That's one of the, I would call it upselling, of like trying to educate them on there and bring that into the equation as well.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Rich, I'm going to move the next question to you. What are some of the challenges that GBU sees in the build community implementing sustainable practices, and how does GBU help them to overcome some of those challenges?
I will answer that, but I want to answer the last question first,
Oh,
if you don't mind.
absolutely. You jump in there.
But it's perfect, because I think what I'll actually talk about sort of the connection between these two, because of course measurement is such an important, we just spent, hearing from other panelists about ROI and sort of, those higher ROIs being, or longer ROIs, I should say, being harder to justify for clients. I did want to touch though on, because I think this is, that makes a lot of sense on the project side, but I know there are folks here who are probably more on the operations side. I just wanted to sort of touch on, other metrics that I think we and our membership see. And, again, in my past experience, having worked for the city of Philadelphia, I spent a lot of time working on, greenhouse gas inventories, right? And things like that, that are very wonky and, matter to a very small subset of decision makers, but oftentimes are still things that are required for compliance, or somebody tells you got to do, right? We for many years in Philadelphia, now are expanding this to other parts of Southeast Pennsylvania, have energy benchmarking requirements or regulations. And really this is sort of coming from and out of best practices, where we know folks like everybody on this call, I imagine you're already measuring your energy performance. You're tracking whether that's for cost, whether that's for sustainability, whether that's for again, somebody's making you do it. You want to know how that building is performing, right? And so really the idea of these initiatives, which Green Building United supports across the region, is to make sure that everybody is sort of at that baseline and tracking in the way that we know the best performers are. And the last thing I wanted to say on this piece is just to underscore what Rick said of, it's all these metrics are fine and like folks, again, value numbers, but it's to me, and I think what we see is it's really about the feel and it's about the people and it's about the experience of being in these high performance buildings. And I think a lot of what Green Building United tries to do in terms of having building tours and events is really helping people see the impact of and feel what it's like to be in a passive house construction or feel what it's like to be in a building that's really taking energy performance and management seriously. So I think then to that next question of, what are the challenges that we're seeing in implementation? I think it does come back to this return on investment question. It comes back to, we know they're high first costs, and you just heard from Joe talking a little bit about some of the grants, and we were exiting a time when grant funding and tax credits were pretty widely available for a lot of sustainability and energy improvement projects, and entering a time when resources are going to be more scarce than they've been in many years. So I think this question of who is ultimately on the hook for long-term costs is a big one. We talk about this a lot on the residential side, where folks are the people who are living in homes are often not, they're not the ones who are building them, right? And so how do you sort of deal with that? Certainly on the commercial side, you talk about the split incentive, you talk about those energy costs being borne by a tenant. I think that's something that certainly I imagine folks here are wrestling with in the facilities that you're working on. And again, sustainability is one topic in a world of priorities right now. When you're talking about economic pressures, you're talking about tariffs, you're talking about everything else. So I think that the opportunity that we really see when we're talking about, how do you overcome these challenges, is to speak in a language that decision makers understand and care about. So back to the question in the chat of, how did Rick get the board and the president at Muhlenberg to care about living future, right? How do any of you in the work that you do convince decision makers? You start with, what does this person care about, and how can I, make that case to them based on the language and the things that they understand. So I think that's really what we try to do at Green Building United, and the policy work that we do working with decision makers is what we do in sort of the work with our members of helping them sort of hone their skills and their experiences so they can go into rooms and talk about, yes, the technical details, and this is what matters for a life cycle assessment. This is what matters for embodied carbon, but also this is what matters for, somebody in the C-suite who's really trying to crunch those numbers and get that ROI to be as fast as possible. So I think a big part of it is back to communications and language. So pause there, but curious to hear what others think.
Yeah. So Joe, you mentioned too about taking it down to a discussion level that suits the client's knowledge base. What are some of your challenges? Because as you know, and I know, in the build community, there's so much diversity in product anymore, from traditional build to more sustainable products. So what are some of the challenges that you face, and how do you convince people to overcome
them? So challenges are, I'll say the first thing challenge-wise is always related to budget, right? So anytime you bring up an issue, right, whether it's sustainability, aesthetics, building materials of any source, people there's sort of a three-pillar approach to any building, right? Budget being one, schedule being the next, and then quality being sort of the third pillar. That you have to come to a happy medium between those three things to basically satisfy the needs and the wants of any client that we're working with. So as it relates to sustainability, a lot of times we're taking the lead from our clients, and then when we understand and hear the language that they use and what's important to them, then through what I would say education of of ourselves and our staff, we're able to then guide that conversation in a way that can push them through education about ways of enhancing what's important to them. So, I always go back to energy savings because it is an easier one to deal with clients because everybody likes the idea of saving energy. And then with that, you know, I always default to simplicity over complexity. And the reason for that is specifically when I think about long-term maintenance operations of a facility, many times we're dealing with people who either have limited staff, right? So again, when we're dealing with smaller organizations, it's either a limited staff or someone who's outsourcing those maintenance duties to somebody else. And then I guess I will just share a simple means of how I was able to save a client money recently. I was contacted by a facilities manager of a local elementary school to go through, interested in replacing HVAC equipment because wasn't able to maintain the right temperatures in an office setting. And I went through and looked and realized that, they had like a remote setting on the thermostat, and the particular thermostat was set to 68 degrees, and it was just too cold in this office. And I was like, you see, every other thermostat was set to 72. This one was set to 68. I think if you just change it to 72, see if that works first before you start replacing a piece of equipment.
So you're saying there's a little human error in some of the sustainability practices?
Sometimes, yeah. And also, and again, this isn't very complex, but having, in this particular school, they had all of the thermostats were remotely located in a closet that was only supposed to be accessed by staff as a means of keeping people from touching thermostats in their local, like the local area that it's controlling. And yet somebody got in there and either reprogrammed the thermostat or changed that particular temperature that created an issue, right? And sometimes, that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with, which could be as simple as turnover of staff, right? And then re-education of that staff of taking the simple approach versus the complex approach to solving problems.
And if I could just jump in there and respond to that, that is a perfect example of sort of the both the people and the data elements of this, like where, in that example, it was somebody's physical response, right? It's too cold in here. We also see, again, in those energy benchmarking programs that we support, folks look at the data and they see a jump, right? Like it's steady, steady, steady. And then they're not doing maybe the more sophisticated management that folks here are, but they see this jump, like, well, what happened? And, we talk them through it and they go back and they find the sort of thing that Joe talked about. We see that all the time in buildings, in schools, in commercial buildings, and, warehouses all across the region. It's, somebody sets a setting and forgets about it and nobody ever goes back and changes it back. So that is a super common occurrence, and I think does speak to the value of both, talking to people who are in buildings, but then also doing that tracking as well.
This is really good conversation because at IFMA Lehigh Valley chapter, we've talked about artificial intelligence, and I'm hearing, there's still a lot of opportunity to take human error or some of those anomalies out of the equation. Rick, you mentioned that you got support from your board and your trustees and your president for the Fahey building. In regards to the rest of the campuses, are there challenges with taking what you did at Fahey and implementing that throughout the rest of the campus?
Well, back to Fran's point, it's all about the ROI and cost on some things. We have started, our new CFO has us doing what we call low-hanging fruit. We are spending a lot of money to convert all of our lighting systems to LED lighting. So we're getting away from the old fluorescents and compact fluorescents and all those and turning them all into LED lighting, which will have a nice return on investment. It'll be a little bit longer, but it won't be, it won't be out of the realm of realization. Um, to Rich's point and to Joe's point, there are companies now that are integrating into your building automated system on the commercial side that can go in and basically sit on top of it and look at what's going on with your HVAC system, your building automated controls, and help curtail some of that human error. If the guy goes in and puts the system in manual for a while he does work, or shuts it down for a while he does work, and then he gets called away because they're very busy and they're called to other jobs, and then forgets to go back and reset that setting, it's going to show up on these companies that are using um, advanced logics, whether it be AI or others, to help monitor your systems to make sure you're getting high performance out of them. So those are a few different things, and I implemented that at one of my other schools that I worked at, and that worked very well. The return on investment was there, so the vice president that I worked for was able to maintain that system for a number of years while I was there, which was great.
Good. Brandon, anything you want to add to that conversation?
No, just that, a lot of it comes back to the return on investment. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share a small project that we did within our wine missing facility, if that would be okay with this.
Yeah, absolutely. That was our next question we were lead into. What are some of the innovative projects or solutions you've come up with at your facility? So
Perfect.
again, almost like we rehearsed it.
Very good. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Very good. So we have at our facility, we have two 35 horsepower air compressors. These are air-cooled air compressors. And when we put the building together and we built the building, we put them in a mechanical room within our facility. And that mechanical room had no air conditioning in it. And this was, in my opinion, an oversight on our architect's perspective, as far as not taking into consideration the amount of heat these air compressors were generating. Well, we quickly found out, even going into the winter months, that the heat inside that mechanical room, even it stayed here during the summertime, but even during the winter time, was in excess of 90 degrees because of, again, it was an enclosed space, and we just didn't have a place for that heat to go. So we did something just quickly. We added a mini split air conditioner in this particular mechanical room, a 5-ton unit. We realized that this wasn't the most efficient solution, but it got us up and running so that we didn't cause any issues with this room being so hot and having an effect on the equipment that was in there. But we also then put a fan in to be able to dissipate some of the heat into the next room, which are our shipping and receiving area. But we knew this wasn't a cost-effective solution. It just got us up that we could continue to run at the time. So what did we do? Well, we looked at ways that we could eliminate the use of that mini split air conditioning unit, because it's like, oh my goodness, this makes no sense at all to be putting an air conditioning unit in a mechanical room. And we searched for different ways of solving this problem. And keep in mind that we are in a leased facility, so we had to be in lockstep with our landlord. It's because of the type of work we were doing here, make sure that the landlord bought into the changes we were going to make. So we looked at a couple of different items, and we felt, hey, let's duct the heat to the outside. Okay, sounds pretty straightforward. And it was, as was mentioned earlier by someone, the simplest solutions are sometimes the best. This was indeed the simplest solutions. But we also wanted to be able to set it up so that we could utilize that heat in other areas during the winter months. So we added some motorized dampers. We also then sent the heat out through the roof. We added a relief hood on the particular roof to be able to duct it. This is what the ductwork looked like in the mechanical room. You can see the two Atlas Copco air compressors there. Instead of that heat just going into this room and heating up the room, we're now ducting it into the neighboring room, which is our shipping and receiving room. You can see in the second picture there, we also started the penetration through the wall into the next room. This is our exit point for the heat for the summer months through the roof. This is what the particular vents look like up on the roof itself. And this is the heart of the system, and that is this ductwork. We are coming out of the mechanical room. We make a 90-degree turn and we go straight up. During the summer months, this damper that is shown on this image here is in the closed position, so that all that heat is then dissipated directly out through the roof and out of the building. We do have the capabilities, though, of switching things around. So during the winter months, we can actually bring that heat into this shipping and receiving area and essentially receive some free heat. So we have a simple switch that we had our electrician set up here that switches us from summer to winter. It's not automated. It's a manual operation this time. We do see in the future the possibility of tying this in with our building automation system and potentially automating it. But we felt, again, let's get a simple solution that allows us to turn off that 5-ton mini split air conditioning unit and be able to utilize this heat during the winter months. So that pretty much concludes the what I wanted to share here with the team. And I wanted to, first of all, see if there was any questions.
Brent, I have a quick question. We've talked a lot about ROI.
Yes.
The obvious low-hanging ROI here is to reduce your heating costs for your shipping and receiving and getting the heat out of that space and not putting the mini split in there.
Yes.
Did you take into account increasing the life cycle on the compressor units as part of reducing that heat?
No, actually, we didn't. That's a great point, Michael. So yeah, that's another item that we need to add into that. And it's funny because Kelly Templin, who's also on this call, she made this entire project happen. I'm very proud of the work that she did to indeed put this whole thing together with her team. Her and I have to get together and actually do the formal ROI calculation. We want to just after the fact be able to go through and just double check our numbers and get an idea as to what the actual cost savings is. But we did a rough estimation of about a year and a half is
That's great.
is where we believe we are.
Yeah, and I know those those softer ROI numbers are harder to quantify.
Correct.
How much time do you extend in the life cycle of those two units versus keeping that heat into that confined area?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
But I'm sure it helps as a selling feature to the project by knowing anecdotally to be able to say we're going to extend the life cycle and not replace these units as frequently.
Agreed.
Yeah, good. Thank you for sharing. There was some wonderful comments from some of your FM colleagues. So, Joe, I'm going to go to you next on the same thing. You touch a wide array of client types, of facility types. What are some of the innovative solutions or applications that you're seeing with your clients?
So, Rick touched on this before about changing over light fixtures to LED, which, okay, if we date ourselves and go back 15 years or so when LED just came on the market, it was a very expensive undertaking. And nowadays, right, if you're building new, you're always putting in LED. There's no real option other than that. But I will say, that is again, I go back to simplicity. So LED lighting is one of those very simple solutions that is a major energy savings when you look at someone who's in an existing facility or may have bought an existing facility, wants to renovate, but may not even be thinking about upgrading lighting, right? In our opinion, it's the first conversation that generally takes place. Um, and it's sustainability. But I don't even need to bring it up based on sustainability. It's such a simple method of not only saving energy, but providing better, more efficient lighting. And then with that, so when I also talk about simplicity, I'm a real fan of giving control locally to people. So localized switching, and then with that, and again, I know this sounds really simple, but giving people a dimmer switch versus an on-off switch, as a means of then even reducing energy even more. So that at a very basic level is something that we've done. Fran, your solution that you came up with there is a great solution. That's something that I've run into in the past in car dealerships, machine shops that have compressor rooms, and have done that exact same thing where, I think that's a great solution for people that is also innovative, where in the past people just didn't even think to do those types of things. I'm trying to think of something else that might be along those same lines. Just trying to think of something HVAC related, but nothing's coming to mind right now. But to me, LED lighting was one of the biggest things that I think that has now become commonplace, but at its first implementation was like cutting edge, and now it's like, it's very, very simple and straightforward.
Well, and with the advent of building automation systems, you can integrate that in with daylight harvesting and so many other aspects to the building. And as
Yes.
Rick mentioned earlier, now you take that and you add a layer of artificial intelligence to it, and you kind of take some of the human error aspect out of managing a sustainable building. Rick, I'm going to go to you next because I think you're leaving out some. I know you're very modest about the Fahey building, but there's some wonderful innovation in that building that you haven't even touched on yet. So now's your opportunity. And look,
There
Rich,
we go.
Rich is just beaming. He can't wait to hear it.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. We are very proud of the building. Let's get that out on the table. We did do a lot of things. We implemented a lot of technologies, some of it very easy, simple kind of things, and some of it are a little more dynamic, a little more robust. To Joe's point, on-off switches, dimmer switches, things like that. What we found, um, and what you'll find as you study sustainability a little bit, is one of the biggest things to overcome is human nature and habits that humans form, turning on and off the switches and things like that. As you know, if you have kids at home, getting them to turn off the lights or turn off the TV or turn off whatever is always a challenge. So what we did was in our major spaces in the building, we put occupancy sensors in there. So when you walk in, the lights come on. In our office spaces and things like that. Now, remember that if you haven't seen the building, there's glass everywhere. We have a lot of glass. All the offices have glass, have windows in them. The hallways have windows at the ends and things like that. In the offices, we converted those to vacancy sensors. So you actually have to reach over and turn the light on in your office if you want it on. And it will turn off when you leave after 15 minutes or so. Our HVAC system is set up the same way. It'll turn on after you've been in the room for a few minutes, and it'll shut down and set back once you leave the room for a little bit. Some of the bigger things that we did was we have a 10,000 gallon rainwater storage tank that takes the rainwater from the roof through the downspouts into the storage tank in the back of the building. That water is then pumped through a series of filters and brought into the building, and we use that to offset our toilet water usage, which is significant. That's our biggest user in a building our size. It's 21,000 square feet. Um, Part of that obviously was for core, but if you look at a building our size, a typical building our size would use about 192,000 gallons of water per year for various things, whether it's hand washing, drinking, or toilet flushing, whatever the case is. For core, you have to reduce that by 50%. So that puts us at about 96,000 gallons of water. By implementing this rainwater management system, we're using about just under 15,000 gallons of water a year, which is about 7.8%. Our electricity, we put 183 solar panels on the roof. Our electrical, a typical building our size, using the EUIs, the energy use intensity, is about 96,000 BTUs per square foot. The target was to reduce that by 70%, which would put us down to around 24,000 BTUs per square foot. And currently we're sitting at about 7.8 thousand BTUs per square foot, or we're at about 8.1% of what a typical building our size would use. Um, so those are things that when you look at return on investment, you know, the question was, we actually went to our sustainability committee and said, hey, you have a green revolving fund. Can we use money from the green revolving fund to purchase the solar panels for the roof of the building? That's about $220,000 worth of solar panels. They asked for the return on investment, and we calculated it out and gave it to them and told them it was going to be, I forget what the number was, roughly 5 years, let's say. Um, when we did all our energy calculations and whatnot, to date, we've been open since, again, January of 23. To date, I've had one electric bill that I've actually had to pay on the electricity. I pay all the transportation all the time, but I've only paid one electric bill in since 2023, January 23. So the ROI was already, it's gone. We took care of that a long time ago and moved right through it. So um, those are just a few of the things. I mean, we could go on and on to the bird-friendly glass and all the other things that we've been implemented and worked on. So lots of good stuff going on there. And
So you
appreciate the opportunity
you
to
kind
discuss
of you
it.
kind of quickly glossed over the bird-friendly glass, but it's a piece that's near and dear, and I think a lot of folks, obviously on this call today, have buildings and facilities with an excessive amount of glass. Obviously, we want daylight coming in. We want the environment for workers to be pleasant. Um, again, a member of GBU as well, we've talked extensively about bird-friendly glass. And possibly Joe even hears it from clients. Can you share a little bit about that piece of it?
Sure. Dr. Clem will be very thrilled with me having
Yes,
this
that's why I'm
discussion with
going to give him some
you.
opportunity to be heard.
Dr. Clem is the head of our ornithology department. He is actually the innovator of bird-friendly or feather-friendly glass. He has multiple patents and has helped design and um, have built a lot of different types and testing and things like that. So what we did was our building is designed to be a a teaching lab, if you will. There's signage all over that talks about all the different sustainable efforts, including the bird-friendly glass. What the birds see things when they're flying in two ways. One, they can see through, and the other is they can see the reflection. And that's what tends to lead to, in Dr. Clem's estimation in his book, it says we lose in the United States alone, we lose about 1 billion birds a year due to crashing into glass. So what he's done is he's created these patterns on the glass that will help dissuade birds from seeing their reflections or seeing through, and it keeps them from running into the glass. To date, I will tell you it's been very successful. I have not heard of one bird crashing into our buildings since we've had the glass installed. What we did for Dr. Clem was on the storefront windows, we went to a acid etch type system, and on the smaller office windows and things like that, we used a film, which is you can buy it. It's a 3M product, or there's a few out there. 3M is one of them. The film we bought has been on the market for probably almost 20 years now. They've never replaced it on any of the buildings that they've installed it on, and it's installed literally worldwide. It's a great product. It was interesting because when we did when we ordered our windows for the building, for those windows, thinking outside the box, which actually turned into be a interesting issue, was we sent the film to the window manufacturer and said, "Hey, here's the product. We want you to install this on the outside glass. We want it to be, this is what it looks like. This is how it goes on and whatnot." The day the windows arrived on campus, I was walking out of the construction trailer. I saw the crates there. I just snapped a picture with my phone and sent it to the architect. It took him about 30 seconds to call me and tell me that they had installed the film on the windows in the wrong direction. There's a specific pattern and a specific direction that they have to be installed, and that wasn't right. And I just took a picture showing him that, hey, the windows are here, not even thinking about that. So we ended up installing the windows. They had to peel the film, and then they had to reinstall the film on all the windows that they had put in air. So fun stuff. Uh, always interesting in construction, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rich, you see things a little differently as an organization that advocates for sustainable practices in the build community. What are some of the innovative products or innovative processes that you're seeing implemented on projects now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we just talked about the bird safe glass. I feel like that's definitely something that
I wasn't going
has
to
been
let him get
coming
off
out.
without
Yeah,
not talking
no, it
about the
was
bird
good.
skin glass.
That was good. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Couple of things that I wanted to mention. I don't think we've talked about yet. Sort of on the technology side, I think one of the things that's been really interesting again in the last couple of years with the Inflation Reduction Act incentives, which are now mostly but not entirely sunsetting, is sort of some of the technologies that I think were winners through those incentives. So things like geothermal, um, and we're seeing here and perhaps elsewhere in the region, networked geothermal in particular, but the opportunity to have the entire geothermal system be eligible for Inflation Reduction Act credits and rebates, I think was a big deal. We're seeing that in a bunch of projects across the region. You hear about, and we are seeing, battery backup is blowing up. It's getting cheaper. Um, as we're experiencing more storms across the region, I think that, reliable, backup generation is more important than ever. So I think that's something that even as those incentives start to go away, I would expect to still see that on the technology side going forward. And then the other sort of non-technology thing that I would highlight, this actually gets back to some of the conversation we had earlier in the call about the certifications. Green Building United was founded as the Delaware Valley Green Building Council 2001, 2002, as a local chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council. We still have a relationship with them. We're an independent 501c3 now. But it's been interesting to sort of see one, the evolution of LEED, right? Sort of thinking about how that accreditation system has evolved, and now LEED V5 is coming in the next year or so. The I think really exciting innovations that to me look like they have learned from Passive House, they've learned from Living Building Challenge. They're integrating resilience and sort of human-centered elements in a way that you really haven't seen from LEED before. But we're also seeing the integration of these certifications. So Rick talked about this with Fahey Commons, working toward Living Building Core, and then sort of Passive House just kind of comes along for the ride. We're seeing LEED and WELL coming together more and more in projects across the region. including at the place where we're doing our groundbreaker awards this fall, which is a building called University Place 3.0 in Philadelphia in West Philly. And we're also seeing projects who are sort of meeting all the requirements of these certifications, but aren't actually certifying. And I think this was, maybe part of one of the earlier questions of, the certifications themselves and LEED in particular can be expensive. I think we have to acknowledge that. And, if the ROI isn't there to actually get the plaque and do the certification, but you're still able to use the certification to do the good work that you're trying to do in the building. I think we're seeing that more and more too. So I think my sense is that sort of the innovations that we're seeing is towards the integration of these various certifications, maybe away from, I think there's still room to celebrate and there's still room for the plaques and the labels, and some people really want those, and some leadership and C-suite folks really want those, but I think that the concept and the standards and the ideas are really here to stay.
Good, good. Well, we're running short on our allocated time, and I want to certainly leave time at the end here for some Q&A from the attendees. So I'll go in order here, starting with you, Joe. What is one item you would leave with our attendees today? What, as a priority, they should look at for sustainable practices?
So I think it starts with education. So I'm a firm believer in learning new things. I learn new things on every project I work on, even today after doing this for 35 years. So starting with education first, and then I will re-echo the ideas of energy reduction. So educate yourself on how to reduce energy within your facilities.
Good. Fran, I'll go to you next. Same question.
Boy, Joe perfectly led into exactly what I was going to bring up. We were actually starting a project, and again, I'm going to point to Kelly Templin, who's leading this right now. It's around understanding our building automation system very, very well. So, yes, you first get the building automation system. It's like, oh yeah, I can adjust these temperatures, I can do this. But now we're taking it to the next step and being able to saying, okay, how does it look from a holistic perspective on the building's performance? Are we consuming too much gas to reheat space after we conditioned it, et cetera, et cetera? And that's an area where we're taking a deeper dive.
Okay, I'll go next to Rick. Same point.
Um, One thought, they've hit on a lot of good ones. Education is obviously a big one, but if I had to leave everyone with one thought, it would be along the lines of using the words of a good friend of mine, which is bake sustainability into the project from the beginning. Um, that way it's not hanging out, it's not easily or readily reduced or cut. What does good look like is a phrase that's used a lot now in sustainability. Those are things that are really important to look at, and getting buy-in from the team as a whole is also a critical element in this situation.
Good, thank you. Rich, if these gentlemen haven't stole every possible answer,
They did a really good job, and I
you have
appreciate
something
the
to add.
shout outs for education. And I will just plug one more time Green Building United and our Lehigh Valley community. I'm going to put a link in the chat to that. Come help us plan events and education going forward. But I think the one other thing that I wanted to say that sort of I think builds on Rick's point is, think about yourselves. Again, you're all here. You volunteered 8 a.m. on a Thursday to show up and hear a bunch of guys talk about sustainability. You care about this topic, right? You are the champions within your facilities, within your organizations. Own that, and take that really as a charge to go talk to other folks, and hear from them, what matters to them. Because I guarantee sustainability is going to be a solution to one of the challenges that they're having, whether it's through energy reduction, whether it's through resilience planning, whether it's through green infrastructure. There's all sorts of ways that sustainability can show up in helping folks deal with whatever challenges they're having. So be that advocate and that champion. I know if you're here, you care about this. So go forth and let's do this together.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. And before I move into the question and answer period, I see Mike Ludi put a item in the chat. And Mike, thank you. That was our first quarter sustainability webinar was on energy storage, and it was the MTEL energy storage product. And anybody interested in that, I see, Rick, you responded. You can find that presentation on our website.
Right.
And it is there for you all to view, and the contact people are listed there so that you can reach out. It is as Rich said, energy storage is moving in a rapid and ever-changing path forward. So let me go to Q&A. I'm going to start with Marie. I saw her hand first. Marie, if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, I'm just going to make a quick comment, especially to what Rick talked about and Rich talked about, and mentioning the bird safe glass. I don't know how many of your attendees understand it or know it or want to know more, but Lehigh Valley Green Building, well, I shouldn't say that. Green Building United is going to be offering a webinar on August 21st from 9 to 10 a.m., and it will be a repeat of the bird safe glass and bird safety seminar that was held at the Sustainability Symposium in May. So it is available to anyone that would want to watch it. Non-members, it's $10. If you want to become a member, that's great. I'm sure Rich will applaud that. So think about that. But I just wanted to put it out there. And Mike Gibson will get that link. He'll receive it as a member. And so, Mike, if you want to share it with the IFMA people, that's a great opportunity for anyone interested to learn more about it.
Absolutely. We'll put that in our on our website and our resources page. Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
If I could, I would like to talk a little bit about GEM Grid and Energy, Scott Sign.
Do you have a question for the panelists, Mike?
Yeah, well, it's a question. It's information to share. That's all. But the process, you talked about ideas.
If you've got something that you want to share in terms of sustainability, go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So what I wanted to say was, one of the things that I've learned working with Scott the past few years, and some of the people on the panel, not on the panel, but on the webinar here, is the fact that what Scott has done and stands out in the energy engineering space is due to his approach, where it's integrated and it's strategic and it's owner-centric approach to building infrastructure. And what he's done and what we have done is create basically a collaboration, cross-discipline collaboration. And what I'm getting at there is the idea that we get all stakeholders or groups involved, from the building owners and the engineers to the financial advisors and compliance experts. That way we can ensure that every perspective is considered, that results in a plan that is both technically sound and financially viable. I was working with Rick at Muhlenberg with that, it's his people, and we've done a few projects here, some energy master plans, and I would recommend that people take a look at GEM Grid and Energy Master Planning, if they would, for a solution. Because our approach is we are agnostic to equipment and system, but what we do is we really look at the building owners, what their needs are, the type of building, and analyze it, look at all the available funding, which another key fact is the fact that Scott has come up with a solution that brings technology, combines it with the available funding that's out there, and presents it back to the decision makers, which would be like Rick and other people were mentioned, the C-level people that say, well, what's the ROI? What's the cost? What's the net operating income impact? And it is a game changer and results, I believe, in quite a few more smaller companies, even larger companies saying, let's do this. So I just wanted to share that with people, and they could look at Jam Grid and Energy Master Planning website of Scott's.
Mike,
That's all.
it's a good point. It's a question we actually had. We just ran short on time. Perhaps at IFMA we were a little too aggressive with our. Yeah, I see you, Steve. We'll get right to you. Aggressive with our number of questions, but one of them was to turn to your partner, your vendor partners, and third-party professional services to get that information. You know, Joe's an architect. Steve Glickman, who's on the call, is an architect. Those professional services to challenge them to help you with more sustainable practices. So it's a good point, Mike. Steve, your question.
Sorry, I can't find the hand button, and plus
That's okay. I saw it.
I'm on vacation, so I was driving for a while, getting coffee. I would just like to say, you know, what you guys are doing at the higher level, by higher level, I mean large commercial institutional projects, eventually trickles down. I deal with a lot of small projects. Obviously, one large projects and many small projects tend to have an equivalency point at some point. But it's important what you guys do because, like you said, LEDs, for instance, everyone's using LEDs, residential, commercial, on up to institutional and industrial now. That wouldn't happen unless there's large-scale implementation on your end to reduce the costs on a long-term basis. Even home automation is now, you know, trickling down, occupancy sensors, water reuse. Those things are important and wouldn't happen unless you guys sort of do the testing, do the implementation, and understand the ROI on it at a larger level so that an individual at home can understand that, oh, they can reduce water consumption, they can do rainwater reuse, they can do battery backup if they happen to have a car. So I just want to congratulate or thank you guys for doing the big lifting so that it can be implemented on a major scale across, you know, all sizes of projects, and that the actual certification is also the gateway drug to mass implementation as well. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, good point, Steve. Thank you for that comment, because we sometimes lose sight of how that trickles down from some of the bigger corporations and their efforts. So again, I want to thank
Steve, I have a question for you. Where are you on vacation? It looks so nice there.
I'm on Cape May Point, so I have a great view of the square
Amazing.
there, and
Yes.
the ocean's a 2-minute bike ride. So yeah, it's nice, relaxing. I see this thing at 8 o'clock. It's like, you know, I had to go get cream for my coffee in mid-conference, which I could do.
I wondered why you were out and then back in. I thought maybe we bored you, Steve, and you just came back for the closing.
Well, I hate to say this, but we got our Zabar's bagel and lox package drop shipped to Cape May for breakfast.
Oh, goodness. Is there anybody else on vacation wants to tease us with your vacation location?
Sorry.
Well, I do want to thank our panelists, Rick, Rich, Fran, and Joe. We do appreciate you taking time from your busy days to educate us at IFMA and all the attendees today. As I mentioned, this is recorded. It'll be on our IFMA website by Monday, the 21st of July. I will send all attendees a link, and I will also include the contact information, the email contact information for our presenters so that you don't pest them by phone. So I also last want to thank again our sponsors, Southland Industries, Serpro Easton, and Under Hewitt Associates, our annual sponsors. And any last questions before I hit the end button? All right, gentlemen, thank you for the presentation, and thank you all for attending. Have a great weekend.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.